Hello everyone. Today we are going to start with the third part of our French Revolution. Okay, so in the second part we have discussed that the France became a constitutional monarchy and then became a republic. So now let us see that how did it abolish the monarchy and became a republic. So Louis XVI got a secret negotiation with the king of Prussia, and the rulers of the neighboring countries were also making plans to send their troops into France to stop the events which were taking which the people of the France were events which the people of France were doing against the monarch. So why the rulers of the neighboring countries were doing so? Because they had a fear that if the people of their country will see the situation in France, and they also then start the revolt or the uh, uh, discontent, they also will start doing revolts against the monarch after seeing the situation in France. So they were also sending troops to settle down the events which are taking place in France since the summer of 1789. So, but before that, the National Assembly in April 1972 declared war against Prussia and Austria. Okay, before the people of when the people were planning when the neighboring rulers were planning to send their troop, before that the National Assembly voted and declared a war against Prussia and Austria. And in that war, there were many people who participated in the normal civilians of the France. Many of them were participated in the army, and one of the most famous patriotic songs which they sang at that time was Merciless, which was composed by Rocket Leslie. Okay, and this is the national anthem of France today itself. Okay, so this was a very famous patriotic song which was sung by the people of France who participated in army at that time. And people thought that constitution gave political rights to richer people only. The we have discussed in the previous video in the part 2 that the political rights or the voting rights were only given to the richer people, as the men of 20, who were about 25 years of age and who gave the wages 3 days of the wages of a labor can only have the right to vote. So this created a mindset of people, and it was right also that the political and the voting rights were only given to the richer section of the society. And now when France had become constitution had framed a constitution, so political the formation of political clubs was allowed. So the political clubs were formed, and they discussed government policies and planned their own form of actions. And the most successful political club among them, there were so many, but the most successful was the Jacobin, and it got its name from the former convent of Saint Jacob in Paris. So it was the most famous political club, and it consisted of small shopkeepers, artisans such as shoemakers, pastry cooks, watchmakers, and etc. The people who are not that much economically good in the society. So those people were composed of those people were in the Jacobin club, and the leader of that Jacobin club was Maximilien Robespierre. He was a very famous man in the French society. We'll talk about him later in this chapter. So before that, let us now see that in the summer of 1792, the plan and insurrection of a large number of Parisians and short supplies and high prices of planned an insurrection means an a revolt or an a violent revolt, you can say, in which violence is involved. So the Jacobin in the summer of 1792 planned, and they collected all the Parisians matlab the people of Paris. Okay, so they collected a large number of Parisians, and the Parisians were angry because of short supplies and high prices of food. There was a short supply of foods, as well as the prices were too high. So the Parisians were already in anger, and the Jacobin gave them uh, a little, you can, Sahara, so that they can start a revolt against the monarch. So in August 10, the Parisians stormed the palace of Tuileries. It was a residence of the monarchs. It was a common residence of the monarch where the monarch lived. So there was a palace. This is a name of a place, Tuileries, and in Tuileries there was a palace. So they stormed at the palace, and then the assembly voted to imprison the royal family. Royal family means the king, queen, the son of the king, and these are involved in the royal family. So the assembly voted, and they decided to imprison the royal family, and after which elections were held, and now the voting rights were now given to all men of 21 years and above, got the right to vote. So all the men who were 21 years of age and above had the right to vote. Now there was not the system of the wages equal to three days of labor's wage and all that. Now the newly elected assembly was called the convection. Okay, and in 21st September 1792 abolished the monarchy and declared France a republic. So on 21st September 1792 France became a republic, and then Louis XVI was sentenced to death by a court on the charge of treason. Treason means the act of, you can say, he against the country. The act of doing everything against the country is called treason. On 21st January 1793, executed publicly at a place de la Concorde, Queen Mary Antoinette met with the same fate shortly after. So Mary Antoinette, his wife, Louis XVI wife, was also uh, sentenced to death in the same charge of treason, and she was also sentenced to death at the Louis XVI was placed in the public in a place called De La Concorde, and at their place he was sentenced to death. Now let us see what is the reign of terror. Okay, the reign of terror. So the period between 1793 to 1794 is called the reign of terror. Now let us see why this period is called reign of terror. What happened between 1793 to 94? So as I told you earlier, Robespierre. Okay, Robespierre, I told you he was the leader of the Jacobin club. So now he was the supreme power of the France, and he followed a policy of severe control and punishment. To whom he gave the punishment? To ex-nobles, clergy, members of other political parties who were in his opposition, and even the members of his own party who did not agree with his methods of that severe control and punishment were arrested and imprisoned. Okay, and then they were sent to a court, and if the court found them guilty, they were guillotined. Now what is guillotined? I'll show you. This is called guillotine. This is a man, you can say a clergy or a noble, or who is against the Robespierre, so his neck will be inside this U-shaped structure, and this thing he will drop down, and his neck will be, you know, separated from his body. So Dr. Guillotin, who invented this you know this machine, not machine, or this thing which you can see here. So after his name the guillotine was named. Okay, now the prices rose. The meat and the bread were rationed. What is the meaning of meat and bread were rationed? Ration means that the amount was fixed for every person, that okay, he will get only 3 kgs of meat and 2 packets of bread, and the same will be given to the other person. There was no freedom of the people that they can take more from 3 kg. So they were rationed. Ration means they were supplied in a fixed amount, and peasants were forced to transport grain to cities and sell it at a fixed by the government. Now the peasants who he grows the grains, the prices at which the peasants will sell the grains was fixed by the government, and the peasant has to sell that grain at that amount only, which was fixed by the government. So these all things are taking place in the rule of Robespierre. You can see that a very harsh policy was applying to people, and lower class people also were not economically very good in the society. And use of more expensive white flour was forbidden means it was not allowed, and citizens were required to eat the quality bread, a loaf made of whole meat. So whole meat is a little it is not that much good quality as white flour. So white flour was forbidden and wheat flour was allowed. So the bread was made of whole wheat flour. Now the churches were also shut down and converted into offices. The churches were shut down. The nobles, sorry, the clergymen were removed from the churches, and they converted the churches into offices, and the people worked there like they were working in the office. But in 1794, the people were frustrated with this harsh policy of Robespierre, and in July 1794 they arrested Robespierre and sent to guillotine. Now let us look at what was the directory rule of France. So as the Jacobin government, as the Robespierre was now sent to guillotine, the new constitution was framed of France, which denied the vote to non-propertied section of society. What is the meaning of non-propertied society? The people who do not have their own land, they do not have their own houses, or you can say the people who live on rent, who these people are counted in non-property section. So people who are non-property do not have the right to vote according to the new constitution of France. Now an executive was made, and executive was the directory of France. Now what is the meaning that executive was directory? Executive was the supreme power of the France, and it consisted of 5 members. Why it consisted of 5 members? Because consisted of 5 members because it was a safeguard against that the power should not go in the on in the hand of just one person. uh, if the executive consisted of one person, then the whole power was with the one person, and it was a sort of say you can say monarchy. So it consists of 5 members, so that the it was a safeguard against the concentration of power in one man. And but the directory often clashed. What does that? The five members of this of that executive clashed with each other, and finally the legislative council decided to dismiss this executive. Now, as the executive was dismissed, now France was facing a political instability, and this political instability gave rise to the military dictator who is Napoleon Bonaparte. So we'll talk about him in the fourth or the I think sixth part. Okay, so thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.